Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Bracket Busters podcast. I'm your host, Elliot Crow here, and we are tuning in on November 11th. We are going to be covering last week's games. It's a little bit late. I meant to record this yesterday, and I'm not going to lie, work got away from me and had the day off today, so kind of slacked off a little bit last night more than I should have. So we're recording this today on Tuesday, which is totally fine. And actually, we can update on some Monday games as well that happened last night. What we're going to be doing today is, if you are not already subscribed, do go to bracketbusterhoops.com, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's free. If you want to sign up for the paid subscription, I'm certainly not going to complain about that. That keeps the lights on. So outside of that, what we're doing every single week is we're going to be releasing what I'm calling the Bracket Busters Heat Check. We're going to be covering teams that are on fire. We're going to be talking about teams that are heating up, and we're talking about teams that are cooling off. So this week's a little bit different because it's the first week of the season, right? There's no necessarily heating up and cooling down per se in terms of the baseline of how the season's going. Week one is the baseline. So what we're doing is we're covering teams who are kind of getting to that like on fire status where they looked really good in week one. We're talking about a couple teams that looked not great in week one. So that's kind of how we're approaching this week's episode here. But I do encourage you to tune in. I'm really excited about this. If you want to catch these videos every single week, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to just read this as well, I highly recommend signing up for a newsletter. It's been growing a lot, and I'm really thrilled with the success that we've had over the last year or so. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. It was an absolutely electric week one. So we had multiple scares. Okay, number one, we had multiple non-Division I schools knock off Division I programs, most notably Hawaii Pacific knocking off Boise State. If you don't know, Hawaii Pacific has a school out of a strip mall. It's awesome. So anyway, we also had Greg Campy nearly give Purdue a scare. We had Weber State nearly take down Utah. I know Utah's might be a little bit down this year, but that's okay. Still an impressive game. We had Southern Mississippi choke away a game against South Carolina. So it was like one of those weeks where we didn't have a ton of upsets in terms of like non-power conference schools knocking out power conference schools. It was like a lot of near misses, in my opinion. So anyway, we had a lot of good games. But outside that, though, we had some teams outside the non-power conference ranks that are doing what we expected or even a little bit more than what we expected coming into this. So let's go ahead and dive into the first team of the week that we're talking about who is heating up, and that is the St. Mary's Gales. The Gales are coming off a 2-0 week, and they looked really, really, really good. There was a lot of questions around what were the Gales going to look like coming into the season. They lost a lot of talent. They were a very veteran team last year. How are you going to replace Augustus Marciulionis? How are you going to replace these guys who were key contributors for not just one season, multiple seasons for the Gales, because the Gales have had one of the best retention rates even through this NIL era. So one person that's really stood out is Mikey Lewis, and that's a guy who they were putting a lot of stock in coming into the season, and he has not disappointed. So last week they took down Chattanooga 87-66, and they took down St. Thomas 84-58 in the home opener. Both games were at Moraga. So Mikey Lewis, though, let's talk about him for a second here. Against Chattanooga, he had 28 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals. Against St. Thomas, he had 23 points and 6 assists. This is a guy who, there were some question marks around it. They knew, obviously, he's a tremendous offensive talent, and he is doing exactly what was expected of him this year. He's taken another step forward with missing pieces around him, and he's kind of becoming that go-to offensive guard. However, what's really impressed me is his ability to also help distribute the ball. If you watch Randy Bennett's teams, if you've watched St. Mary's ever in the last, for however long, ever, he's running the same system pretty much every year. My point being, though, is they like to have a lot of ball movement, and Mikey Lewis has really stepped in and embraced that role. So he's doing multiple, but he's not being the main point guard. The main point guard is a guy named Joshua Dent, who's really, really stepped up. Through the first couple of games here, he's averaging 6 assists per game. And most notably, so that's 12 assists total, obviously, through 2 games. He's only turned the ball over once. It's been really impressive. Against St. Thomas, he had 18 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, and no turnovers. So you have Dent, who's kind of been this go-to point guard for the Gales, and then you have Mikey Lewis, who's been a tremendous combo guard, who's also emerged as a ball-handling threat. So this is what's really contributing to their, what I would say, higher success rate. They should have won both games, but both games turned into blowouts, and this is against 2 programs who, in their respective non-power conferences, are going to be at the top of the league. Then in the Summit for St. Thomas, and in the SoCon for Chattanooga. So let's just say Mikey Lewis has just been incredible. A couple other guys that's really stepped up is Paulius Murauskas is doing what we wanted to see out of him. He had 22 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists against Chattanooga. Against St. Thomas, he had 17 points and 8 rebounds. He's been tremendous. They actually lost Harry Wessels. Harry Wessels started in the first game. He's a 7-footer. And Andrew McKeever had to step up. And he did not miss a beat against Chattanooga. He had 16 points, 8 rebounds, with shooting 7 of 8 from the floor. So this is also what I love about this Gales team. It's kind of that next man up mentality. And this is why I think that they have the potential to maybe be even a little bit more special than last season. Number one, they're already receiving votes in the AP poll. I think they are going to be ranked in the AP poll at some point in time this season. I think that they are going to be a dangerous threat once again in the NCAA tournament. I think this year could be, depending on their seeding, this could be the year that they actually finally maybe make a little bit of a run in the tournament. So definitely keep an eye on the Gales this week ahead. They play Ohio tonight at home. But then the important game is North Texas. We're going to talk about North Texas a little bit more later on, but they are off to a 3-0 start underneath new head coach Daniel Robinson. So definitely encourage you to tune in to tonight's game. They should win the Ohio game. The North Texas game, though, I think will be the highest challenge they've had so far. Just because of the way that North Texas plays, they slow the ball down. They're a very defensive-minded first team. So definitely kind of keep an eye out to see the results of that. If St. Mary's comes out 4-0, I think we need to be having some legitimate conversations around what is the Gales' long-term season going to look like here, and when are they going to actually finally get ranked in the AP poll. I give it a couple of weeks. Even I don't think they'll be ranked if they come out 4-0, but I think if they come out 6-0, maybe the week after, or if they're still undefeated going to Thanksgiving, we should be having a conversation around whether or not the Gales are ranked yet. Another team that is heating up, and it should be no surprise, is the Akron Zips. They have emerged as an absolute offensive juggernaut. They took down James Madison the first game of the year, 85-71. That, and by the way, James Madison was the preseason favorite in the Sun Belt, and they beat them by 14. They also just drilled Princeton, 104-69. This is obviously not the same Princeton team that we've seen in previous years, with people like Xavier Lee leaving and Caden Pierce not playing. So this is not the same Princeton Tigers that we've seen previously, where we're having conversations about whether or not they could be an NCAA team, kind of dark horse. So the Akron Zips are just dominating. As a whole, the team is shooting 47% overall. They're shooting 37.1% from three-point. That's 102nd in the country. And their offensive rating is 57th in the country per KenPom at 113.4. So the thing that's really stood out to me, we knew they were going to be offensively really good again, but the question was going to be, how can they step up on defense? Because defense really ate them alive last year. Last year, they were just 182nd in KenPom in terms of defensive efficiency. So they've really stepped up. Right now, they're 100th in the country. It's actually their defensive efficiency stepped down a little bit from 107 down to 102. And again, it's just the first week of the year. But they have stepped this up. What I've been impressed with, they racked up 11 steals against Princeton. They racked up 10 steals against James Madison. So that's 21 steals in just 2 games. They've looked really good, still despite not having necessarily that go-to guy who's like a traditional big man. And it's a traditional John Gross lineups. He's running like multiple guys. Actually, in fact, they have 9 guys averaging at least 11 and a half minutes per game right now. It's classic him style, especially the beginning of the year, trying different stuff out. But John Gross typically likes to run a deep lineup, like probably 8-9 guys at least. Amani Lyles has been the surprise player for me because I thought that Tavari Johnson was going to be go-to guy. Tavari Johnson is still doing very well. He's averaging 17.5 points, 4.5 assists, and 1.5 steals. However, Amani Lyles is averaging 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 1.5 steals, and 2 blocks per game. So that's kind of been the defensive game changer here, right? Like the on-ball defense by the guards have been about what we expected, but having somebody like Amani Lyles who's been able to step up not only just on the offensive side, but step up on the defensive side. This is a guy who we thought for multiple years could kind of step into a larger role for the Zips, and he's finally getting that opportunity, and he's taking advantage. And I think this is huge for the Zips because it adds an additional defensive player that can help slow down other teams where their guards just drill other teams offensively into the ground. So anyway, this is a team that's heating up. This is a team that's going to borderline be on fire very soon. They have a tough week, though. So first game, doesn't matter. They play Division II Penn State Shenango. I think is how you pronounce it. So whatever, it's a win. But then they travel to Mackey Arena, take on Purdue later this week. So Purdue is coming off a scare against Oakland. I will say this. Akron's probably not going to win that game, and that's okay. Purdue's preseason national favorite to win the championship this year. They were the 1 seed, and they are now, I think I saw the stat was like they might be the first AP number 1 ranked team who moved down to number 2 with Houston not receiving a single. I don't remember. There was some stat like that. I'm not keeping up with that. The AP poll is kind of weird anyway. Anyway, so all that trying to be said is, I'm not saying Akron's going to go in and beat Purdue, but if Akron loses by like 14 or less, that's a win. That's a win, and that shows what Akron can do. And it's going to depend. I don't know if Trey Kaufman's still playing for Purdue or not, or if he's going to play this week. He was out the first couple games. That is a difference maker too, because he's obviously tremendous on their defensive end. So we'll kind of see what happens there. I think anything less than 14 points for Akron is a big, big game for them against a really tough team like Purdue. So Akron, if they can come out 1-1 with a respectable loss to Purdue, it's going to look good on the resume. It's going to look good on team morale as well to continue to go on throughout the season. This is a team who can easily pop off a 10-game winning streak in conference. So anyway, all this be said, keep an eye on the Zips. The Zips are a fun team to watch. They are extremely enjoyable, and I highly encourage you to watch a Purdue game because I'm super curious to see what this fast pace that they play at can do against a Purdue defense like they have. All right, so also no shocker here, but Utah State has looked really good through the first couple games of the year, so we added them to the heating up list. They fended off VCU, and I say fended off because they fended off an 18-point comeback, 80-77. What's really stood out to me is how well Vanderbilt transfer MJ Collins has played through the first couple of games. He's already making a huge contribution through 2 games. He's averaging 22.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 1.5 steals per game. Against VCU, he finished with 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. Mason Falslev is obviously doing Mason Falslev things. He had 18 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals in that game as well against VCU. Who had a really underrated game was Drake Allen. Drake Allen, he only scored 7 points. You're like, whatever. But what was impressive was he had 9 assists and 6 steals in this game. Like, that is a type of performance that doesn't, you look at the points because everybody just gravitates towards points is that first stat that you look at in the stat sheet. But when you start going down the list and you're like, this guy had 9 assists and 6 steals. I mean, that's a huge performance in a 3-point game. So the Aggies, they shot at 48.3% overall. They racked up 18 assists and 14 steals. Honestly, the problem is VCU just dug themselves in a hole way too early. It's hard to make an 18-point comeback, especially in college basketball. It's hard to make an 18-point comeback in the NBA. I will say Nick Lewis looked really good in this game for the Rams. I liked his performance a lot. He had 19 points in that one. So Utah State, they're moving on 2-0. And VCU is going to try to bounce back against the St. Peter's team, so they should win that game. Try to get some momentum going again there for the Rams. On the season, though, I will add Mason Falslev. He's averaging 13.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 1.5 steals. Drake Allen's averaging 9 assists and 4 steals per game. Obviously, just 2 games. And by the way, guys, their first game was against a non-Division I opponent, so that's kind of inflating everything up. But the performance against VCU is extremely nice and really a solid resume-building win for them early in the season because, to be frank, the Mountain West has been struggling a little bit. UNLV lost to UT Martin. There's been multiple. Fresno State lost to, I'm drawing a blank, but a lower conference team as well. You obviously had Boise State blowing a game in Hawaii Pacific, and I understand that the Division II games don't necessarily go into the metrics. That's fine, but hey, guys, you still lost to a non-Division I school. Anyway, so outside that, Gary Clark, he's averaging 12.5 rebounds per game through the first 2 here, and they won 110-54 over Westminster on the first game of the year, so whatever, that's fine. But the performance against VCU is what I'm really ranking this for here. They take on Weber State. Keep in mind, Weber State just nearly knocked off Utah in overtime, and honestly probably should have knocked them. They had a couple of opportunities here. They take on Weber State and then UTEP. UTEP has also looked decently well, but let's put it this way. Utah State should come out of this week 4-0. And with the start that the Mountain West has had, they desperately need Utah State to come out 4-0 after this week because what they need is San Diego State and Utah State to really elevate this conference to maybe having 3 bids because I don't think it's going to have more than 3 bids this year personally. Okay, it could not have been a better week for the Liberty Flames. They started off 3-0, and they did it in a dominating fashion. The first game of the year was against non-Division I, so let's not talk about that too much, but let's talk about the fact that they beat 2 legitimately really good non-power conference schools by a lot. They beat Charleston 90-75, and they beat FAU 88-68 over the weekend. So they are kind of emerging as that true offensive juggernaut, very similar to what Akron's doing. Against Charleston, they shot 54.2% overall. They shot 48.3% from beyond the arc on 29 attempts. Against FAU, they shot 55.2% overall and 46.4% on 28 attempts. So they're just an offensive weapon right now. It's actually insane. You watch them, it's I'm going to be honest with you. It's kind of like watching the Pacers last year a little bit where, it was like they just sprint and run and just, I mean, obviously, my largest concern about them is they don't have height. So let's not compare them maybe to an NBA team, but they're running that same style of offense where it's just you're sprinting up and down the floor, a lot of ball movement, a lot of open shot opportunities, and a lot of different guys who can help facilitate that offense, and that's really what's contributing here. Caden Bethany has looked phenomenal. He had 18 points against Charleston. He had 28 points against FAU. He combined for 17 of 26 overall and 10 of 18 from beyond the arc. Brett Deckers also looked really, really well here. He's averaging 23 points through the first 3 games this season. I will add this, though. They don't play another Division I school until November 17th again here. And they do lack significant size. Their tallest players, I think 6'8", 6'9"-ish. So not a lot of height here, and I think that's going to eat them alive. I will say that they have a couple really good opportunities to prove if they can, kind of overcome maybe that little bit of an issue and what I'm describing here in terms of lack of height. They play Dayton and they play NC State in the non-conference still. NC State's a really good program. NC State is on the track to be ranked in the AP poll pretty soon, and Dayton is Dayton, and they're consistently very good. Actually, guys, I'll add, tune in tonight. Dayton plays Cincinnati at 6 p.m. Central Time, I believe. That's a huge game. If Dayton can pull that off, that makes this game even more important between Liberty and Dayton for the Flames. So anyway, what I'm saying here is if you want to watch some fun basketball, I do encourage you to check out the Flames. This is a team who is heating up. Flames heating up. Anyway, outside that. So this is a team who's going to probably be very dangerous come March. Let's see how they keep it going, It's the first week of the year here. Let's not start calling any shots. Another team that had a really good week last week is SIUE. They are coming off their first NCAA tournament appearance in school history. They're coming off their best season since transitioning up to Division I. So what they did was they took down East-West. All right, let's chalk that one up. They won 119-50. Let's not talk about that. But the impressive performance was against UT San Antonio. They won 77-60. Really, after about the 8-minute mark in the first half, it was just all Cougars. I mean, they just absolutely turned it on. They just absolutely dominated the Roadrunners here. They actually were the 5th highest KenPom increase from opening day to the end of the week last week. They made 61 spots upwards to 169. I'm going to add here in a second, though, if you look today, you're going to be like, what's this guy talking about? They lost to Indiana State last night, and that dropped them down to 200. So still an increase, just not as much of an increase. Keep in mind, guys, it's the first 3 to 4 games of the year right now, so the metrics are all kind of smoothing themselves out. So there's going to be a lot of fluctuation up and down, up and down. And for SIUE, there was just kind of a victim of that, which is really funny to me because Indiana State got drilled by a Charlotte team who barely beat, I think, 10 Tech last. Anyway, all that being said is I'm shocked they fell that much. Beside that point, it was a really good week for Ohio Valley overall. They actually had 3 of the 15 teams make the highest jumps in KenPom. But back to SIUE. Ring Malleth, he was looking really good through last week. He was averaging 18.7 rebounds. Against UT San Antonio, 20 points, 9 rebounds. He shot 8 of 12 from the floor. Joe Valerie came off the bench, looked really good in that game. He had 10 boards off the bench here. As a team, they shot 48.3% overall. They shot 42.9% from 3-point. Most notably, in my opinion, was their defensive presence. They held them to just 28.2% shooting overall and 24.1% from beyond the arc. And I don't think it was a fluke. They were just all over them defensively. They just could not get an open shot. It was just a really just truly dominating performance by SIUE. And I think this is they lost to Indiana State last night 64-55. But they were tied 32 apiece at half. And so, the Missouri Valley is a much better conference than the Ohio Valley. Ohio Valley is usually around 27th in KenPom in terms of conference rankings. Missouri Valley is usually around 9 or 10. So dramatically different level of talent that's playing in both these leagues, but SIU is able to compete with someone like Indiana State, and they have another opportunity. They play Drake later this week as well. So if they can knock Drake off, they're 3-1. We could be having a legitimate conversation about what Brian Baroon is doing coming out. I really wanted them to hold on and get that win over Indiana State last night, just kind of to keep building this momentum going forward. Let's see how they do against Drake. This was going to be a game on the road in Des Moines. Drake lost in overtime to Robert Morris last week, so I think they're going to be defending home court a little bit heavier here. But definitely encourage you to just kind of keep a little tabs on SIUE going throughout the rest of the season. They could maybe make back-to-back NCAA appearances. Guys, before we start talking about the team who had a disastrous week, let's talk about the St. Bonaventure Bonnies because they are also heating up. They jumped from 122 to 111 in KenPom by the end of the week. The Bonnies are 2-0. They won 69-63 over Bradley and then dominated Canisius 89-70. They're knocking on the door of a top 100 KenPom status. The highlight of this team is Daryl Simmons, man. If you don't know him, he's coming out of Gardner-Webb. A lot of people don't even know who this man is coming out of here, but he's averaging 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals per game through the first couple games here. He lit up Bradley. He shot 5 of 11 from 3-point. Frank Mitchell's looked really good. He's been a menace down low. He's averaging 16 points and 10 rebounds. Caden Charles made the jump from non-Division 1 up to Division 1. He's averaging he's averaging 13.5 points and 6 rebounds. And Joe Grahalvik, he is this guy coming out of JUCO Fullerton who literally had NBA scouts watching him at Fullerton. Had a ton of power conference offers, and he chose to go to St. Bonaventure. And he's about what is doing as well as advertised. He's averaging 11.5 points, 6 rebounds, most notably the 2.5 blocks per game. So this is a team that, again, I've highlighted multiple times. I picked them preseason 8th in my A10 poll. I even admitted at the time I think that was probably a little bit low for them, and I think it is. We're seeing other teams at A10 we're starting to see the A10 shift, which is what the A10 always does here. And St. Bonaventure could emerge as a team that could finish top 5 in the conference that a lot of people had picked 7th to 9th, somewhere around there usually, or in all the rankings that I saw. So they looked really good through the first week, and they have an opportunity to move 4-0 this week. They take on Siena, and they take down a Youngstown State team who, by the way, Youngstown State just went and took down Grand Canyon on the road. So this is no just low-level conference team. This is a Youngstown State team that is consistently good, consistently wins 20 games a year in the Horizon League. And I think St. Bonaventure needs to take that game very seriously. But if they can emerge 4-0 coming out this week, they have a huge test on November 25th against North Carolina. That is going to be the game that is going to really be able to determine what are the Bonnies really going to be made of. So definitely pencil that game in because it's getting around the holidays, guys. You're going to want to watch that game. So if you're interested in keeping up on the Bonnies, I have a full roster review from preseason on my website, bracketbusterhoops.com. Definitely encourage you to check that out. And like I said, overall, man, Woj and the squad up there is doing some incredible stuff. Quick last note here, I want to shout out UT Martin. What Jeremy Schulman is building there with his assistant coaching staff is incredible. They took down UNLV on the road 86-81 last week. That was a shocker around college basketball. They also made a huge jump. They are now 287th in KenPom. That was 44 spots from opening day. And how they've done this is they've really hit the international recruiting trail hard. I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm really sorry, but they brought in Andrija Brukhemrovic. He had 23 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals on 8 of 10 shooting in that game. Drago Slungo had 23 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. I'm actually going to add here, I watched Lungo play in FIBA Eurobasket Tournament 2 years ago, and I thought he was going to do a little bit more when he went to San Diego to start his freshman season. He did not play much, so he transferred to UT Martin, and now he's getting that opportunity, showing him he looked good again. He played overseas again during the summer. This guy's legitimate, guys. Legitimate. And I had talked to Coach Schulman during off season, whenever they got him, and I was like, this guy's good. And they were ecstatic they were able to land him because nobody knows who this guy is, and he's doing exactly what everybody, including myself, thought he could do. So really, I'm happy for him because he's finally getting that opportunity to show what he can do here. Skyhawks are 2-0 this week. They're legitimate. They are legitimate, and they have a chance to do it again against Bradley this week. Tune into that game because I'm telling you right now, guys, UT Martin could win the Ohio Valley Conference. And this is a team who nobody knew how to rank because of the metrics and because they have an entirely new squad. But I'm telling you, what Jeremy Schulman's building here, something special. And the Ohio Valley's trending back upwards, guys. It's not going to be the Belmont Murray State days, but I know that was their goal this season, was to start building respect back up, and they were doing just that through the first week of the year. Okay, let's talk about the disaster of the week, and that was Loyola Chicago. It started off, they got a win. They started off 1-0. They won 91-88 over Cleveland State. But let me add something here. They were up 10 points late in that game. They blew it. Cleveland State came back and clawed their way back into it to tie the game. It took a Daywell Tavares, who, by the way, has looked really good, 3 to win that game at the buzzer. So you start that off, you're like, all right, whatever. Maybe you don't close the opening game. That's fine, whatever. But then Mercyhurst came to town, which Mercyhurst is their second year in Division I. They haven't had a major win yet over a team, and they just dominated Loyola Chicago. The entire game. Loyola Chicago looked terrible. Mercyhurst won 73-65. The Ramblers tried to make a second half comeback off the hands of Justin Moore, who, by the way, Justin Moore finished with 25 of the Ramblers, 65 points in this game. He tried his best. But the Ramblers just shot the rest of the team, if you take Justin Moore's stats out, the rest of the team shot 31.5% and 25% from beyond the arc. To show what he did, if you add his stats in, they shot 37.7% and 30.8% from beyond the arc. So Justin Moore was pretty much the entire offense for the team. They just couldn't get anything going. I mean, it was abysmal to watch. But kudos to Mercyhurst. This is a huge win for this program. Bernie Blunt looked incredible. He's unconscious. He had 27 points, 3 rebounds. He knocked down 12 15 free throws. It was all Lakers from the beginning of the game. Loyola Chicago, they literally scored 5 points in the second half and nearly the first 9 minutes of the second half. I can't express more how bad they looked. I mean, it didn't get any better Sunday either. They lost to North Texas. It was at least a close game. It was a really fun game. It was a lot of back and forth. It was exactly what we thought it was going to be. Unfortunately, they actually tied the game with a couple seconds left, but then Dylan Arnett ran the court with about 4 seconds left, and then knocked down a buzzer beater shot to win 64-62 in that one for the Mean Green. But I will say this, the Ramblers, the first half again, killed them. They were down 34-20 at the half. They had to make a comeback, and it's always hard making a comeback. But anyway, so that's back-to-back games where they scored less than 30 points by the half mark. Man, I don't know. This is a team I was hyped up. I hyped up a lot. I admittedly hyped up a lot. And here's the thing. It's first 3 games of the year. Plenty of time to figure this out. But they're mightily struggling, and their schedule doesn't get easier. They take on Wichita State on the road and Colorado State at home this week. Man, I'm just saying, I don't know. We need to see some better results out of them. So keep an eye on those 2 games, see if they can figure this stuff out. If not, man, there's a chance they could go 1-4 through the first 5 games of the year. Truthfully. So we'll just kind of see if they can figure that out. Hopefully for Rambler fans can. As we wrap up, I want to highlight a couple of key player performances from last week. Kent State has looked really good through the first 3 games of the year. These stats are coming from just last week. Kent State had another nice win over UNC Wilmington last night. But Morgan Stafford for Kent State. He had 21 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist against Troy. He had 34 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, and 4 steals against Cornell, which, by the way, that final score of that Cornell-Kent State game was Kent State won 110-102. Thriller, man. I love good offensive games. Jaden Booth for Samford. Huge recruit coming in for Lenny Acuff in his first year at Samford. Jaden Booth had 34 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists against Tulane, and 26 points, 6 rebounds against South Carolina State. So kudos to both those guys. Looking ahead for the rest of the week, though, in terms of the schedule, we have a couple of key games. Some of these are happening tonight. So the games mentioned tonight I mentioned this earlier, is Dayton and Cincinnati. They play tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time. If the A-10 wants multiple bids, Dayton's got to be good. You need Dayton and VCU. You need George Washington to keep it up here. You need George Mason. They've looked really good as well through the first, even though they kind of didn't look good against Winthrop, but that's okay. The A-10 is looking to get back to maybe a 3-bid status, at the very least a 2-bid status. So they take on Cincinnati tonight. That is a huge win for the conference. That would be a huge win for the Flyers. Stay tuned. I think they're 5.5 underdogs in that game. But anyway, yeah, keep an eye on that game. Murray State plays SMU tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time. Murray State has looked phenomenal through the first couple of games of the season here. They participated in the Field of 68's opening day event, and then they took down Mississippi Valley State, which, okay, it's Mississippi. I think they're maybe the worst KenPom team in the country. I don't know. Anyway, this is a huge game, though. First of all, it's Battle of the Horses. Love that. You got the Racers and you got the Mustangs. But SMU looked a little questionable at times against Tarleton State and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They won by less than 10 points to Texas A&M Corpus Christi. This would be a huge win for Murray State. I think Murray State has been underrated the entire season. They've been, if I say the entire season, it's 1 week. They were underrated dramatically coming into the preseason. And this is a team who if I had to lay money on the table right now, and you want me to pick somebody who I think nobody was talking about that could win the Missouri Valley, it is Murray State. This would be a huge win. This would also be a huge win for the Valley. So definitely in pulling for the Racers this evening, you're going to have to watch that game. It's going to be a blast. Just please check it out. The Racers are loaded with talent. There's a reason they have multiple NBA scouts checking them out, and I can confirm that they are doing that. So check that out. Yale also plays this evening at 6:30 Central Time against Quinnipiac. This is going to be a fun one. Amari Monroe and Nick Townsend are both incredible players. Nick Townsend obviously being on Yale and Amari Monroe being on Quinnipiac. It's going to be a really fun game to watch, guys. This is like a battle of the non-power conference schools. Yale is heavily favored in this game. Keep in mind, Yale, guys, if you want a bracket buster for this year, I'm telling you, it could be the team for you. However, that being said, though, I'm shocked Quinnipiac is such an underdog in this game. I think Quinnipiac could easily win this one. But Yale needs this. Yale needs this win. But also Quinnipiac needs this win. So it's going to be a fun game all around there. Moving on to Wednesday. I mentioned earlier, UT Martin takes on Bradley. They will play Wednesday at 7:30 Central Time. UT Martin's coming off that great week of beating UNLV. They got some momentum going there. Bradley needs to play nearly perfect in their non-conference schedule to kind of, I don't know if the Missouri Valley can reach multiple bids. It would be great if they could. It's going to need to be teams like UNI and Bradley and Murray State being really good. So this is going to be a huge win for them if they could get it, to just keep that momentum going forward. But if UT Martin gets it, I think it's an even bigger win because it keeps continuously bringing respect to the Skyhawks program and bringing respect to the Ohio Valley. But selfishly, I love the Missouri Valley and I want them to be a multi-bid league. So Bradley fans are going to need that as well. So either way, I think for overall non-power conference basketball programs here, whichever team wins this game is going to be, it's going to be a nice win for basketball. North Texas plays Oregon State Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. The Mean Green, despite having a new coach with Daniel Robinson, have looked incredible through the first 3 games of the year. So I mentioned here, North Texas takes on Oregon State, and then they take on Loyola Chicago over the weekend. They scheduled hard, man. I love the Mean Green. I love watching the Mean Green every year. So this would be a huge win for them if they can be able to pull off Oregon State. I mean, let's just hypothetically say if the Mean Green come out this week 5-0, beating Oregon State, beating Loyola Chicago. Wow. We're going to have to take a step back here, guys. I'm not even going to edit this because I just sat here and talked about this. North Texas beat Loyola Chicago over the weekend. I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is... Whoops. That's my bad. So, anyway, what I was saying was North Texas is very good every single year. This is a team that is a blast to watch, and they have the potential to just keep... Even with a new head coach in Daniel Robinson, there's been no issues coming over into this new system, bringing in pretty much an entirely new roster. They're 3-0. If they can take down Oregon State, that is a huge win for this program. They could be coming out. They would be 4-0 at that point in time. I'm bookmarking this one as a must-win for North Texas in terms of building respect. Because if the AAC wants to have multiple bids, there are a lot of people saying the AAC is going to be a one-bid league this year because Memphis isn't as good. South Florida has a chance to help elevate it to that status. But if you have that tier of, let's say, Memphis, South Florida, and North Texas are all really good coming into around March, you could be having a bubble talk here. You could be having a multiple bid status conversation being had here. So this is the type of game that helps elevate that over that. Oregon State is beatable. They are not the Oregon State team of years past. So definitely keep an eye on this game and just kind of see how this goes. I think the Mean Green got a great chance in this one. North Texas also plays St. Mary's on Friday. Forgot about this one. They play at 9 p.m. Central Time. This is going to be a much watch game for sickos watching college basketball, watching non-power conference basketball on a Friday night. Anyway, so unless you're on the West Coast, I guess that's 7 p.m. your time. So if you're on the West Coast, where that's not a sicko, but especially if you're East Coast Central Time, you're sicko watching this game at that late at night. Regardless, the St. Mary Gales are legitimate, and if North Texas, I'm putting this out there, if North Texas went to Moraga to beat St. Mary's, and they beat Oregon State this week, they would be 5-0 in the season. We're having legitimate conversations around whether or not we should rank North Texas at that point in time. I think it's going to be nearly impossible for them to beat both teams here. First of all, St. Mary's is an excellent team, and I think they can dismantle many teams with their ball movement and offensive capabilities. So just still keep an eye on this game, though. It's going to be fun to watch. North Texas, man, could be a surprise underdog. I think if they come out this week 1-1 and they're 4-1 in the season, they're going to be on my heating up list next week for Bracket Busters. So yeah, keep an eye on the Mean Green. All right, thank you guys for listening in. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you all for watching here again as well. If you're not yet, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be going and releasing videos at least once a week throughout the season. If you are not already, I highly encourage you, I think I've said this multiple times throughout this video, to subscribe to our weekly newsletter at bracketbusterhoops.com. We're doing a lot of exciting things. We're growing fast, and I'm really excited to see what we can do this season as we continue to build up. This is just our second full season since starting and launching the newsletter. Regardless, thank you all for tuning in today. I did not cover any weekend games because we'll do a little separate post. I'll probably do a weekend preview post coming off of our newsletter again. So if you want to catch those games, definitely recommend subscribing to that newsletter, and you will get some more information about the must-watch games coming into this weekend and how teams did throughout the week. So thank you all again today. I hope you have an enjoyable holiday if you're watching this today on the day it releases, and I'll catch you all next week.